So, Lord Black, you are asking a question today around the impact of COVID-19 on places of worship. Why do you think this is an important issue?
Well, I have the privilege to be Master of the Guild of St Bride's in Fleet Street, the journalist church, and I've seen up close what the impact of COVID has been on churches and their income and their sustainability. And I just think it's very important that we raise the issue in Parliament to get ministers to listen to the fact that churches and other places of worship are in real difficulty at the moment as a result of the crisis. And we need to get that message across loudly. And I hope the question of the House of Lords will be one way of doing that.
Well, obviously, we've seen in response to COVID, the government has offered support to many areas of the economy and civic life, but we haven't seen anything particularly around churches or religious groups. Do you think there should be maybe a particular package of help from the government to religious groups?
I think that certainly that should be one of the things that government looks at. I also think the government needs to sort of take a sort of strategic approach to the sustainability of churches and places of worship. We're all going to have an important role in putting life back together post-COVID. And that means that what we do is going to be more important than ever. So ensuring that churches and places of worship are there, able to respond, and economically viable is going to be really important. And one of the things that I'm going to raise is the importance of not trying to put added burdens on churches. I'm deeply concerned about, for instance, in regard to London, the extension of the congestion charge on Sundays, which in my view will put an intolerable price on worship for those wanting to come into the centre to go to church there.
And other religious minority groups we're hearing are also under a lot of pressure, particularly mosques and Sikh temples. Is that also a concern for you, that some of these religious minority groups really do not have any kind of funding outside of donations from their worshippers and their community?
Yes, it's a concern to me right across the sector and right across all faiths, because all places of worship are in the end essentially self-funding. There isn't a large amount of state money which comes into our organisations. We have to fund our own way, and that, of course, similarly to the cultural sector, has been incredibly badly hit during COVID. So I think we're all suffering, and we all need support, and I'll be making that point today.
And do you feel that the lack of action in terms of helping places of worship, does that suggest a certain tone deafness about religious faith on behalf of the government or Whitehall?
I think we can't underestimate the difficulties that ministers and Whitehall civil servants have faced during this crisis, because it's bitten deep into so many areas of our society and our economy. And I think the government has done its best to try to keep on top of all that. But there is an element always in any of these things to making sure that your voice is heard. That's one of the things I want to try to do today, to ensure that ministers do hear that message loud and clear and understand that we need help. So I'm not sure it's tone deafness on the behalf of government. I think they've just had other priorities, but this should be a priority too, and we need to make sure it is.
And finally, there's a lot of talk now, obviously, about how the country can come out of this crisis. Build back better is the phrase we're hearing. How important are religious groups and faith groups within that, in your opinion? Clearly, to help deal with the economic crisis that we're going to see, the deep impact on the social fabric of society, religious groups are going to play an important role.
So I think religious groups and churches and places of worship will have a hugely important spiritual, cultural, historic, and also economic role in the post-COVID crisis. on many levels. First of all, churches are engines of economic growth because of tourism and cultural activities. But more important than that, I think society is going to be changed as a result of COVID. And many people will have looked to their spiritual side, and I think are going to want greater support from people of all faiths in this period afterwards. And churches are the places, of course, where we go to pray, but they're places, of course, also of quiet reflection where we can gather. People are really going to want that as we move out of this terrible emergency. And that's one of many reasons why government needs to recognise the vital and essential role that we play.